Hey gang, Mocha Boy here, welcome back, and as always, thanks for tuning back in. So, yep, still in the game, still flying. Don't have much time to record videos and post them, but I did want to do one especially for this because this is a pretty important thing for our group. One of our own, and I can't claim ownership of him, but let me put it this way: he's in one of the groups one of the Facebook groups that I frequent, and he reached out to us to assist with beta testing a new FPV flight simulator, and we all absolutely just jumped on the chance. And it's gone through several iterations, lots of bugs, improvements to the updates and UIs, additions of maps, additions of planes, all kinds of different things. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through the setup process with you just to make sure that you can get into the game smoothly and that you don't run into any problems with things like setting up your transmitters or understanding what the basic controls are. So I'm hoping to not go into, I'm hoping that this isn't going to go on too long, but what we are going to cover in this video is setting up your transmitter, and that's going to include looking at your USB drivers and making sure that they're all settled. Going in and configuring your first model, and then we're going to take a look at some of the basic controls, kind of get an overview of the game, look at the different game modes, things like free flight, racing, race mode, single player, multiplayer, and just kind of walk you through the interface and then get you guys on your way. We are interested to see some of the times that people start posting, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a terrible pilot, especially when it comes to wing racing. But I am getting better, and with winter coming on, and just this craziness that's COVID right now, this is a great alternative to being able to get out and fly in a safe and cheap fashion, crash as much as you want. Anyway, let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to cover, and I'm not going to cover this in too much detail because there's a lot of really great information out on the internet on how to fix this. But if you plug in your controller and it's just not coming up in the device manager, or it's not available to select, I'll drop these links down in the description below. There's a couple of different scenarios that you may run into. One of them is your USB driver was overwritten by the new libUSB Win32 driver that came with one of the Windows 10 PC updates recently. The two scenarios here are you end up having to roll back the driver, which means identify the driver within your device manager, which in some cases is going to be under the HID interface devices. And again, the videos and the documentation runs through that pretty quickly, and then roll back the driver. Now, the other option, if you run into this case where for whatever reason you can't roll back the driver, you can actually go to OpenTX and download the Windows USB drivers for your FrSky devices. And let's see, so that downloads this download link, downloads that file. You get a couple of executables. Let's see here, come on, when you zip. So yeah, you'll get your installers. Go ahead and install that, and then what'll end up happening is those drivers will now be available for you to select when you go to actually select the driver for your particular device. So again, those are the two scenarios. Either you roll back the driver to the known working one, so that's away from lib32, better USB over to the HID driver. And in my case, this is what it ends up looking like. You have an HID compliant game controller along with, I forget which one of the input devices it is, but it's one of these USB input devices. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and plug in the micro USB in. You'll get an option to choose either a joystick, HID joystick versus USB mass storage. So we'll pick the joystick. You should see the device register within the HID device menu, and then you're good to go at that point. So yeah, when you're ready, go ahead and either create a new model or copy one over that's got 6 channels ready to go. In this case, we'll just do create a model, set up a plane, take the defaults, in which case on my radio are TAER, throttle, aileron, elevator, and rudder. Some of you are running AETR, so you will probably see something different. So go ahead and choose that. Ailerons on channel 2. Flaps, I will say yes on one channel, And within OpenTX, it defaults to channel 7. No big deal there. We're going to be making edits to the final channel configuration anyway. So let's go ahead and... Oh, actually, we can... I'm sorry. So we can do channel 6 or channel 7. So let's do that. And then no air brakes. Elevator on channel 3, rudder on channel 4. And then that gives us 5 channels here, and then one more that we're going to add in for launch. So long press to confirm. Let's see here. So we'll enter model 25. And for channel 5, we're going to do launch. So this is just going to be L. And C. And we're going to tie this to a 2-position switch. So in my case, that's SC. Switch C. And then we're going to set up channel 6, which is flaps. I mean, not everyone's going to have flaps, but you know, if you happen to be running one of the planes with flaps, this will cover you too. So FLP. Sorry. And then source is going to be a 3-position switch, so you can have them off, down, up, or you can set it up against a pot. In my case, I don't have any pots on here, so SA. So I'm just going to tie it to a switch, but you know, the setup would be identical if you were running this on a transmitter that had pots. So that's pretty much it. And then go ahead and over to your mixer tab and make sure that channel 5 copies over, which is launch, and then channel, oops. Channel 6 is going to be coming in from input. Okay, so flaps are going to be SA. And then you're pretty much off and running at that point. So once you have this set up now, you are running 100% weights. You will have the ability to do radio trims and then just pass those through to the controller. But what I'm going to say here is go in with 100% trims, and then we're going to actually do all of the configurations within Wings itself. All right, so assuming you've worked out all your USB issues, it's connected in, you were able to select it, and it's showing up in the controller section. We're going to go ahead and configure it. Now, this did trip me up, and it still trips me up every now and again, but let me explain exactly how the controller configuration routine works. Regardless of how you have your channels set up, it's going to prompt you for a channel. So it'll say roll right. Now, it's important to remember when it asks you to roll right, just roll right. Don't hit any other sticks. Don't full deflect in the other direction. Just roll right. You'll understand as we go through why that's important. There's going to be a step later on where you take every stick to max deflection in every direction, and that's going to set the stick ranges for your particular controller. So don't worry about things like endpoints or channels. The detection routine will take care of all of that. But on occasion, you may find that if you do something either out of turn or in reverse, it's actually going to record that in reverse. And if that does happen and you have a problem with one of your channels, just start over and it'll pick everything back up. So anyway, we've got the controller, everything, all the switches are in the off position. You want to start off with all the switches in the off position, and then your transmitter sticks at low. So we're going to hit configure controller. We're going to choose mode 2. I'm here in the United States, so that's throttle on the left stick. And then next, it's going to say center all sticks, and then turn your switches to the off position. So we're going to center throttle, and then we're going to do the first detection, the first input detection, which is pitch. So you're just going to push forward, and then it's going to say roll right, and then yaw right, and then throttle to full, and then reset switch, the launch and reset switch, which is my lower 2-position switch here. We're going to move that to the top, and then my flap position, which is on a 3-position switch here, up and down. And then the last thing you do is you will take every stick to max deflection to set the controller endpoints. And at that point, you pretty much should be done. So notice how throttle is now registering correctly. So yeah, it's got throttle in the low position, throttle in the high position, and then everything is all set. So again, just to recap, be careful when you're doing this part of the routine. It is sensitive, and if you have the wrong starting position, it may end up recording the inputs, the channel inputs in reverse. So you want to make sure your sticks are in the off. It's not your sticks. Your switches are in the off position. Everything's in their lowest position or centered before you start this, and then you should be all set. So go ahead and hit save, and let's get flying. All right, so now before we get started, let's just take a quick look at the settings panel for graphics. I'm running in Windows mode. Display wing trails. This is, if like you wanted to put streamers on each other. If you guys were flying, or if you had a group of flyers that were flying tandem, this allows you to attach digital streamers to your plane, and then it makes it easier for you to spot them, when they're in the air. Everybody pick a different color, and then you're off and on your way. The only other thing is, let's see, units. I mean, the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory. For audio, again, self-explanatory. All of the different sound effects are split up into their different types. Now for controls, we already did this one. Now for multiplayer, and we'll do this a little bit later, you have the option of joining a predetermined or pre-set up event. And I think the events can go up to 8 players, or you can set up an event on your own and make it either public or make it password protected. Let's see how many. Actually, you can do more pilots than just 8. Okay, it looks like a maximum of 16 pilots within a particular event. You could have a race, you could have a free flight. All right, so before we get started, I want to make one quick recommendation that, don't go jumping into any of these flights. We want to make sure that you have a good experience with this, and usually that means figuring out what kind of flyer you are. And some of you are going to be low and slow, some of you are going to be, cruise at midpoint, and some of you are just going to want to pin the throttle at 100% and see what you crash into. I don't know. Anyway, what I want you to do is go into free flight. Let's just choose rural airstrips, select spawn. I mean, you can choose any of these, but let's just go to the Genesis field since it's nice and wide open. Now we're going to be looking at CG, elevator trim, expo, and aileron deflection. These are all settings that are available within the controls menu. And obviously, you'll raise expo if you want to dull the sticks down a little bit and not make it less twitchy. The default's pretty good for just regular flight, but if it's too twitchy for you, you can raise this number. And then you can also raise the elevon deflections. That'll give you more throw on your elevon so that you can, get even more out of each one of your turns. So that's certainly something that you can do. And then you also have access to elevator trims, and the elevator trims allow you to trim out that kind of nose up tendency that a lot of the planes will have when you're pinning the throttle. So we'll take a look at that right now. Now, as far as basic controls, C controls your camera mode. Oh, actually, let me back up here a second. Over on menu, you'll see hotkeys and FPV on launch. And FPV on launch, this means regardless of what camera mode you're in, it'll automatically switch to FPV. I'm going to switch that off for now, and I'm going to just control that with the camera key. And then your hotkeys, if you ever forget what they are, they're all here. Spacebar or your toggle switch on your transmitter to launch. Move CG back, move CG forward, reset your CG, trim elevator up and down, and then close. So let's raise the throttle to about mid, and then launch. Flip into FPV mode. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here is that at 50%, it's still got a tendency to nose down. So what I'm going to do is take my CG. So I'm hitting my left key, my left arrow key, and then I'm just kind of tweaking the CG. And the CG, the window in the bottom left-hand corner, the top number is the total chord of the wing, and then the bottom number is where the actual CG is located from the from the leading edge. Now what's going to happen here is as you pin the throttle, notice the nose lifts. And then as you go to mid-throttle, it levels out. This is going to be one of those things where you're just going to have to tweak this to your liking. Some people are going to want to cruise at full speed. Some people are going to want to cruise at just mid-throttle. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to figure out what speed you want to run the course at, tune the CG so that you're flying level at that speed, or introducing in radio trims to kind of trim out those nose-up tendencies when you pin the throttle. And as much as possible, you want to try to get it where it's responsive, but not so responsive that it's twitchy around mid-stick. Those are all things that you have control over. Using the Expo controls within wings, or even just dialing in that Expo on your radio. These are that's the kind of flexibility that you have for creating the flight experience that you want to get. And I guess the only criticism I would have, as far as reality is concerned, I mean, reality for me are windy days. And I've almost never had a situation where an FPV flight didn't have some amount of wind knocking the planes around. And that's something that you have to account for. I mean, that's an actual skill that you have to develop when you're flying, is how to deal with wind. How to sense that it's hitting you from a certain direction. Maybe you bank in a turn and then suddenly your airspeed or your ground speed goes down to zero. Like, what do you do? Those are all important lessons that you have to learn in kind of like real world situations. So anyway, that should do it. Again, just to recap really quickly, figure out the speed you want to run at, figure out the CG you want to run at, that will allow you to run hands off level at that speed, and then just tweak your Expo and aileron deflections to get the kind of performance that you want and the kind of sensitivity around mid-stick that you're looking for, and you'll be able to handle these curves with not too much effort after that. All right, so let me just land. All right. Now for display, this is the thing that just blew my mind away. Wow. Let's take a look here. So on-screen display, yes, there's a HUD, and oops, hang on, we're gonna say no, and we're gonna escape, change the camera view, and that's your HUD. You've got a heading indicator over the bar, artificial horizon. Over on the left-hand side, you've got your speed scroll bars. Over on your right-hand side, you've got your altitude scroll bars. You've even got a directional indicator to show you where home is, and a mini map over on the bottom right-hand corner. So cool to have this, especially if you wanted to practice IFR. The only thing that I haven't seen in this feature is a way to turn the FPV camera off in order for you to be able to practice an IFR landing. This is something that's actually happened in the iNav community, where a couple of people took off in foggy conditions, went up, flew for about 30 or 40 minutes thinking that the fog was going to burn off. Not only did it not burn off, it actually got worse. And their lenses got all fogged up. Their lenses got all distorted from the moisture, and they ended up having to use the iNav heads-up display information to find their way home, figure out how far away they were from the ground, and then nail a landing, all practically blind. It was so cool. So very, very cool feature that they were able to add. Now, as far as the other features, there is a stick overlay. So if you want to record something and then record your stick movements along with it, there's a waypoint indicator if you're going to be running waypoints, in a race or a scavenger hunt. There's the mini map, which is that thing over in the bottom right-hand corner. Race lines, which are pretty cool. If you are, this is something that I wish I had turned on when I was practicing my races, because you actually get to see a virtual race course just in the form of that line, so that you can stay on track and where you're supposed to be going after every turn. So we're going to turn all those features on, except for maybe the heads-up display, since that can get kind of confusing, and we'll escape out of that. So yeah, let's just spend a little bit of time looking at the different aircraft on here. Now remember, this was a sponsored project, so you're probably not going to see every plane on here, but there are some of our if you look at the sponsors list, you'll see which vendors managed to get their planes in here. But some notable additions: the Strix Nano Goblin, one of the breakout hits of the last couple of years. It's a flying football, super slippery, wonderful little plane. I take this with me when I travel, and it is just a great flyer. And for those who want to push their 3D abilities, you've got the Extra 300, the Ainsley Peace drone, very cool large format drone. strict strata surfer for folks learning how to run, or how to learn rather, glider style FPV aircraft, and then TBS Caparina, the unlaunchable. I've seen so many of these guys go nose in because the CG was off. It was it's just painful. But I'm glad that that's in there. It's it's still running. I know people who are still flying their Cappies, all this time later. The VAS Wyvern, I have this one. This is a beautiful plane, and especially with the vertical stabilizers or the extra vertical stabilizers, it just runs on rails for for a plane its size, and especially if you're running this little beast on 6S or oh, look at this! It's actually holy smokes! This is a new addition. This is a dual motor setup. So wow, that must be a new addition from when we ran this on the beta. I don't know how many of you are actually running dual motor setups, but one of the key benefits, or one of the key benefits for running motors in this configuration is that the counter-rotating props completely cancel out torque roll on launch. So these are just amazing flyers. They kill batteries, but it's power on tap. You can do really crazy aggressive flight maneuvers. Basically. Flip your aircraft over in the middle of a flight kind of thing. So very cool to see that that's there. Change aircraft. What else is interesting here? Fun Cub. This is what I set up my son to work with on when we were training. When I just handed the sticks over to him, and he had this little bad boy flying inside of half an hour. Now the only problem with this is you really got to pin the throttle, and let's see. Hang on. Let's see if I can get this guy launched. So, okay, yeah. You just got to pin the throttle and then get it up into the air. So yeah, again, great addition. And, this is just for those lazy days where you want to just pick a plane and go and fly. I mean, a lot of fun to fly these planes. And, especially if you're somebody that's new to FPV flight and you need to learn, line of sight piloting. It's one of those big barriers to entry. Nobody has an issue with FPV because in FPV, right is right, left is left, up is up, and down is down. But, with line of sight flying, as soon as you're flying at yourself, it's like, oh, which way's left, which way's right? And, it's one of those things that you just got to teach your brain and develop that muscle memory to know that when, you're moving left to right or right to left, that controls get reversed. Or when you're flying nose in, I mean, for those of you that run helicopters, being able to understand that the controls are reversed. So, this is a great way to develop that muscle memory, and, so that you don't end up having to learn on an actual model and end up crashing in the process, which is just one of those things that, extends the learning curve just that much further. So anyway, now one of the things that you'll notice with free flight mode is that you are going to be able to control the distance that it'll zoom in. So I mean, if you want it to be kind of the most realistic, where you don't have zoom in real life, you just set that zoom to 0, and then the further away it gets, the smaller it's going to get until it's a dot in the sky, and you're going to be struggling to figure out a way to get it home. Anyway, this is a great trainer for being able to figure out how to fly wings. And for instance, right now, level flight, I need to be at about, with the default trims, I need to be at about 55, maybe 60% throttle for level flight. Now, one of the other things that you could do in this scenario would be to change the CG, pull the CG back using the up arrows, or I'm sorry, using the left and right arrows to set the CG so that you get level flight. So that's one of the things that you're going to be playing with. Again, play with this mode, play with the controls, see what different levels of Expo will do for you so that you can get the flight characteristics that you want. And taking into consideration that the perfect settings are going to be different for everybody. What you're looking for is that it's responsive, there are no control defects, in that it's just persistently heading into the ground, or it's persistently pulling over to the left. It could be something weird with your radio. Anything. You can trim all those things out, and then you'll be on your way. TBRC Warlock. This is another release from, I believe it was this year, or was it last year? I forget. My memory fails me now. But this is another one of those. It's kind of a hybrid plank, plank / 2-motor setup. So forward swept wing, large fuselage. I think this is something that runs in the 500 to 700 gram range, but as much as a kilogram, depending on how you have it set up. But a few of us are running this plane, very cool plane. 3D foamies for you guys in the foamy community. And then more trainers and more planes than you probably have time for. Now, there will be planes added over the course of time. I don't know what will be added, but you know, there's flight test models here, the Kraken, Simple Scout, Mini Mustang, and the Corsair. So, you know, just keep your eye on updates. And, you know, if you've got a plane that you think isn't well represented here, maybe, you know, talk to the vendor and we'll get them in touch with, you know, Kitchen Sink Games and see if they can get their planes included. All right, so enough of that. Let's take a look at some of the racing. All right, so the last thing we're going to look at is, well, a single-person race, which isn't as exciting as a multi-person race, but, you know, whatever. It is what it is. I'm going to select the track. We'll just do this very simple one here. Now, as soon as you log into the race, countdown's going to start. So just be ready. And then at this point, you've already figured out, you've already trimmed out your plane. You know what CG you want to fly at. You know what speed you want to fly at. So you should be able to do level flight, you know, few feet off the ground if you want to. So 2, 1, launch, and then I'm in FPV mode. Okay, I'm going way too fast for this course, but let's see how we do here. So I have set my CG so that I'm at about 70% throttle. And I'm making my way through this course pretty well. And let's see if I can make this gate without crashing into anything. Quick up and over. Got to practice those Immelmans. Here's the logger field. And, you know, the race coordination system will keep track of whether or not you missed a gate or if you were on the wrong side of a gate. And, you know, you won't be able to get credit for that lap if you missed that gate. I'm guessing these flares will tell you where you missed, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, one quick note here. I am running in, I think, medium graphics mode. I'm running this on an older computer. I don't have, you know, like a modern graphics card. So I'm running this in about medium mode, and that's getting me, 30 frames per second here. If you find that, okay, missed. If you find that you're having trouble, you know, maintaining above 30 frames per second, just drop your graphics down, and you know, you should be fine. But if you're running, you know, like one of those new GTX cards, just hey, max out everything and enjoy the textured, you know, enjoy the textures. So here we go. One more up and over, and yeah, you're just gonna do that 4 or 5 times and see what. Actually, you know what? Let's go through here. I think I'm on my third lap. Let's see if we can make it through without crashing into anything. And one more turn. I do have the sound off because I didn't want to have to compete with it, but I mean, the sounds are pretty incredible. So I'm sure you'll enjoy, you know, the sound of the motors flying through the air, and you know, especially when the racing lines cross, and you kind of get that Doppler effect of all of the different planes crossing as you go through. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, I'm on my third lap. Got to do this Immelman. Okay, up and over. This should be lap 4, and let's see what I get for a lap here. I'm sure it's not going to be anything like, you know, what the other guys have been posting, but I'm proud enough to actually just finish a course. I think the first time I tried this, my radio was set up so badly that I was basically fighting the radio, you know, just to fly, which is, you know, that sucks. That's a, you know, bad experience. That's why I put together that video, at least early on, how to set the model up so that you run into the least amount of problems. But ultimately, over the course of time, what's going to happen is, you know, you'll figure out what speeds you're comfortable at flying, and you know, what you think you can handle deflection-wise. You know, I'm sure some of you guys are going to be maxing out those, you know, maxing out the deflection, even though that's, I don't even know if that's physically possible, because I know you can't fly certain planes like that. Anyway, so let's see what we end up at. Okay, 47. Hey, what's going on here? All right, 40. I guess it was at. Oh wait. Oh man, is this my last lap? Did I miss something? Okay, I was a little premature there, and now I think I'm going in the racetrack backwards. Yep, I am. Sorry. All right, what did I miss here? What did I miss? Did I not hit the final gate? Hang on 1 second while I close this out. This is just silly. And zoop. And Immelman. And that should be the final gate, but is it not? Okay then. Oh, okay. I'm coming apart at the seams here. All right, best lap was 45 seconds. Oh, and I'm down for the count. All right. Anyway, so yeah, that's some race footage. I'm not the most impressive pilot, but just to give you some sense for what you'll be finding. Just again, go figure out how to trim out your plane first before you go and do this. Otherwise, you might run into some trouble. But otherwise, have some fun. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is multiplayer mode. And again, this should be pretty self-explanatory. If you've got a group that's already set up an event, just go ahead and join that event. It'll list here. And as far as configuring your own event, all you have to do is pick an event name, pick a map, one of the 3 different maps, and then the event type. You can have up to about a maximum of 16 pilots, and then the option either make it public or password protect it. But then the other cool thing that you can do here is you can create a playlist. And what a playlist is, oops, here, let me just set up a name here, test event. What the playlist is you can take any one of the race courses and create your own race set. So you would just pick dirt roads and add the track, easy does it, add the track, you would say what planes you want to fly, whether you want to do the spec wings or the reflex or the VAS Wyverns, whatever you really want to add. And then that becomes your race set. But let's take a minute to look through some of these so that you can understand kind of the features and why this was kind of a different take on racing in general. Dave went to, or rather, the team at Kitchen Sink Games, they went to a great deal of effort in creating race courses that were flyable and fun. I believe there were some maps, I haven't seen them yet, but I believe there were some maps where they had race gates on buildings. I'm still working my way through all of the races, but for some of the more traditional ones, you've got your start at the gate, easy slalom, running through the race gate into an Immelman, and then back through another set of slaloms along with a 180 corkscrew, and then back through the race gate and do that 5 times at full speed. And then it gets crazy from there. Like these red maps are for advanced pilots, and if we look at dirty bikes, I mean, here you're going through underpasses that are probably about this, the width of doors. I mean, it's crazy. I'm not sure how many people are going to be successful on that course. This probably should have been a red one. But yeah, ton of thought went into designing these race courses. And, one other fun thing about some of these race courses and some of the Easter eggs that, the team have dropped in, these are modeled on real places. So for those of you that have been to NAFPV or that have been to Flight Test, you're going to notice some of these features. And, I'm hoping that when you do, you can post that back and, let us know when you ran that course and what kinds of things were going on that day. Or fun fact rather, was I believe somewhere on the Genesis course, this is modeled on the Flight Test facility, and I think the TBRC Reflex was first flown at this facility, and it was flown by one of the pilots in our FPV group, Chris Hopper. So, shout out to you for being a first there. Anyway, so that's multiplayer mode. Pretty self-explanatory on how that gets set up. You just go ahead and create your playlist, create and host, and then have the pilots join and start your race. So that's about it. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening to me kind of babble on for the past 20 or 30 minutes. Like I said, I'm super excited for these guys. I've been flying in and around Dave for years at this point. I mean, we don't see each other a lot, but through the wonders of Facebook, we're able to basically not miss a beat in their lives and all of the other stories of the other FPV pilots in our group. And to see him work with Charles to set this up and make this become a reality, from getting funding to building the models, working on the physics, tweaking the physics, getting all of the the user experience issues worked out. I mean, kudos to you guys. Hats off to both of you for creating an excellent product at an incredible price point that I think is going to be a staple diet for a lot of folks. I hope this isn't going to be the kind of thing that's just one and done. You fly it a couple times and then you throw it away. I should note that there are Easter eggs dotted throughout all of the different courses, and it'll be interesting to see who finds those Easter eggs and posts them back. But some of them are going to make sense to people, some of them are not. I'm sure they're just kind of inside jokes with the FPV community here. But again, thank you guys for all of the hard work that you put into making this happen. We're super thrilled for you guys, and looking forward to seeing what vendors jump on and what models end up making their way into successive revisions. Again, if you have any questions, or if you have any comments, or if you have any trouble with getting your system set up, drop us a note. There is a Discord channel that's linked in the client, so you can join that and ask for technical support or set up races or whatever. If you have any questions, just hit us up there or find us on any FPV on Facebook. And yeah, we'll see you in the skies.